The term psychopath is not officially recognized as a clinical diagnosis, but is instead used to describe a spectrum of personality disorders ranging from mild to severe. Individuals with such disorders often exhibit a significant imbalance in their emotional and behavioral makeup. They may lack certain emotions entirely, while others dominate their personality. What these individuals share is a poor ability to manage their emotions and impulses. Today's story highlights how someone with such traits can seem charming and agreeable at first glance, only to reveal their uncontrollable and overly intense reactions over time. Danielle Finley Jones, a young Australian woman, was searching for love and happiness when she met a man online who seemed perfect, someone who vowed to love her forever. The reality of what happened next is a tragic tale we will uncover. Born on October 20th, 1991, in Cranebrook, Western Sydney, Danielle was the younger of two siblings and grew up with her older brother Blake, who always looked out for her. After their parents divorced when she was just 4, Danielle and Blake lived with their mother, Jackie, as their father remained largely absent from their upbringing. From an early age, Danielle developed a passion for sports, particularly soccer. As a schoolgirl, she joined a local soccer team, initially playing with boys due to the lack of girls interested in soccer in her area. Over time, she excelled, becoming team captain, earning numerous awards, and gaining admiration from her peers and fans alike. Danielle's dedication to soccer extended beyond playing. She also began coaching youth teams and, in 2017, became the face of a prominent women's soccer promotional campaign. After high school, she attended the University of Sydney, where she studied education and social work. Upon graduating, Danielle balanced a career as a teacher with her ongoing involvement in sports, excelling in both fields. Friends and colleagues described Danielle as intelligent, well-read, and engaging. She had a vibrant sense of humor and a magnetic personality that made her the life of any gathering. Known for her athleticism and striking looks, Danielle was admired not only for her physical appearance, but also for her kindness and generosity. Many men sought her affection, but Danielle prioritized her career and fitness over her personal life, keeping relationships low on her list of priorities. Despite her independence, Danielle continued living with her mother, Jackie. The two shared an extraordinarily close bond, functioning more like best friends than parent and child. They spent nearly all their free time together, attending concerts, social events, and even nights out. Their relationship was built on mutual understanding and trust, with no secrets or significant conflicts between them. By the time Danielle reached her 30s, she started seriously contemplating the idea of starting a family. She had a thriving career, financial stability, and a wide circle of friends, yet she felt a deep sense of loneliness. Danielle yearned for a meaningful relationship with someone she could trust completely, someone to share her life with, wake up beside, and build a future together. Despite having many admirers, Danielle lacked experience in long-term relationships. While she had dated and attracted significant attention, she had never considered her boyfriends as potential life partners. If a relationship clashed with her personal goals or work commitments, she ended it without hesitation. But now, she was ready for a serious and lasting commitment. Danielle actively maintained several social media accounts where she interacted with friends and acquaintances. Though she often received messages from men trying to strike up conversations or ask her out, she believed genuine connections were more likely to come through dating apps. Following her friend's advice, she created a profile on the popular platform Tinder. After months of swiping and chatting with various men, she received a message from Ashley Gaddy, an attractive and seemingly kind man who was 4 years older than her. Ashley came across as friendly, charming, and warm. After a week of texting, Ashley suggested they meet in person for a date. Their first meeting went exceptionally well. They talked for hours, laughed together, and shared personal stories, forming an instant connection. It felt as though they had known each other for years, with numerous shared interests strengthening their bond. Ashley's charisma and humor won Danielle over quickly, and after just a couple of dates, she was so impressed by him that she introduced him to her mother, Jackie. Jackie was equally charmed by Ashley, believing he could be a great husband and in the future, a devoted father. However, it didn't take long for Ashley's true nature to reveal itself. He was controlling and intensely jealous. Surprisingly, Danielle didn't view this as a red flag. In fact, she found it flattering. No one had ever tried to influence her decisions or impose boundaries on her before, and this new dynamic felt different and even exciting. Danielle saw Ashley's possessiveness as a sign of his affection and devotion. But within weeks, Ashley's behavior escalated, and he began trying to control every aspect of Danielle's life and social connections. Despite these warning signs, Danielle didn't raise any concerns. Instead, she adapted to his demands, striving to play the role of the perfect girlfriend. Remarkably, she overlooked Ashley's troubling behavior and began envisioning a future with him, even entertaining the idea of marriage. Her lack of experience in serious relationships likely contributed to her inability to recognize or address the growing problems. Ashley, meanwhile, continued to present himself as a caring and family-oriented man, telling Danielle that starting a family had always been his dream. This deeply resonated with her, further solidifying her trust in him. Yet one of Danielle's close friends began to sense something was amiss. Ashley's jealousy occasionally spiraled into erratic outbursts, making him appear like a completely different person. Concerned, the friend warned Danielle, but she, caught up in her emotions, dismissed these concerns. In the short month they had been together, Danielle introduced Ashley to her mother and a few close friends, though most of her social circle only knew of him through her stories. On Saturday, December 17th, 2022, Danielle planned to bring Ashley to a friendly gathering at a popular city bar, where she intended to introduce him to more of her friends. The group gathered at the bar. The evening was lively with casual conversations, dancing, and drinks. Ashley left a positive impression on everyone, behaving politely and amicably throughout the night. He and Danielle sat close together, often holding hands and exchanging affectionate smiles, appearing to be the picture of a happy, loving couple. There was no sign of any underlying tension. Unlike with her previous boyfriends, Danielle introduced Ashley to her friends, a significant gesture since she had never taken her past relationships seriously enough to involve her social circle. This time felt different. She introduced Ashley almost as if he were her fiancé, surprising her friends given that the relationship had only lasted a little over a month. Nevertheless, they recognized how much this relationship meant to her. Everything seemed perfect until someone in the group suggested a game involving bold and playful questions that participants would answer randomly. The game was light-hearted, with everyone coming up with quirky and imaginative questions. When it was Danielle's turn, she was asked if she had ever had a one-night stand with a stranger. The room fell silent as Danielle hesitated, clearly embarrassed, before offering a shy smile and admitting that she had. In an instant, Ashley's demeanor changed drastically. His expression hardened, and his attitude shifted to one of hostility. Grabbing Danielle roughly by the arm, he turned her toward him and began yelling at her in front of everyone. He accused her of being irresponsible and immoral, using harsh and demeaning language. The group was stunned, unsure whether Ashley was joking or genuinely angry. The atmosphere grew tense as they watched Danielle, who seemed both confused and blindsided by his sudden outburst. Ashley claimed that he had asked Danielle a similar question during their first date about casual romantic encounters and that she had denied having any. Now her answer contradicted what she had previously said, and the public nature of her response further infuriated him. What was meant to be a playful moment in a friendly game triggered an extreme and uncontrollable emotional reaction from Ashley. His anger was disproportionate to the situation, bordering on a complete loss of control. Despite Ashley's unreasonable behavior, Danielle felt guilty and attempted to defuse the situation. She tried to calm him down, but Ashley rudely pushed her away and stormed out of the bar. Even after leaving, he continued the argument, bombarding her with a series of angry and offensive text messages. Danielle apologized to her friends for the disruption and said she would step outside to talk to Ashley and try to resolve the conflict. She left the bar for about 15 minutes, during which she managed to find Ashley and speak with him. When the couple returned, they sat back down with the group as though nothing had happened. Although it seemed that the argument had been resolved, an awkward tension lingered among the friends who had witnessed the scene. Hoping to avoid further conflict, no one brought up the incident again, and the evening continued with an uneasy calm. The group dismissed Ashley's earlier outburst as a result of alcohol, nerves, or stress from meeting new people. The rest of the evening went by without incident, with Ashley remaining calm for the remainder of the night. After midnight, the group began to part ways. Since Danielle lived far away, she had already arranged to spend the night at her friend Taylor's house, along with Ashley. Taylor didn't mind, as he lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood about a 20-minute drive from the bar. Taylor's girlfriend, Rachel, who had abstained from drinking, offered to drive them there. Taylor prepared a comfortable guest room for Danielle and Ashley on the lower level of his house. The room, a spacious bedroom with its own bathroom, had small windows positioned near the ceiling, allowing only minimal light inside. However, it was cozy, private, and well-suited for an overnight stay. Danielle and Ashley settled in for the night, expressing their gratitude for Taylor's hospitality. On the surface, everything seemed fine. The earlier tension at the bar appeared forgotten, and the couple seemed calm and composed. Around 3 a.m., Taylor was awakened by unusual noises coming from the guest room. His girlfriend Rachel also stirred, looking at him questioningly. They could hear faint thuds and what sounded like muffled cries. Assuming the couple had reconciled and were simply having an intimate moment, they dismissed the sounds and went back to sleep. Within minutes, the house fell silent, and they slept undisturbed until 10:30 a.m. When Taylor and Rachel finally woke up, they were surprised that Danielle and Ashley hadn't emerged from the room. Respecting their privacy and assuming the couple was catching up on sleep after the late night, they decided not to disturb them. However, as the clock approached 2 p.m. and there was still no sign of their guests, Taylor went downstairs to check on them. He knocked softly on the guest room door but received no response. After waiting a moment, he knocked again, louder this time, but was met with silence. Growing concerned, Taylor carefully opened the door and peeked inside. At first glance, the room appeared empty. The bed was unmade, Danielle's clothes were draped over a chair, and her shoes were neatly placed on the floor. Yet an eerie stillness filled the space, making Taylor uneasy. As he stepped further inside, his eyes fell on a blanket lying on the floor near the wall. Beneath it, he could make out the outline of a body. Panicking, Taylor rushed over and lifted the blanket. Danielle's lifeless body lay beneath, unclothed and bearing clear signs of a vicious attack and strangulation. Her face was so severely disfigured that it was almost unrecognizable, marred by horrific injuries and blood. It was immediately clear that she had been deceased for several hours. Her body was cold and rigid. Ashley was nowhere to be found, but the partially open window in the room suggested how he might have fled undetected. Terrified, Taylor ran out of the room and relayed what he had found to Rachel. Shaken and horrified, the couple immediately called the police and emergency services to report the tragic discovery. Unfortunately, it was too late to save Danielle. Paramedics could only confirm her death. Based on their preliminary assessment, she had died around 3 a.m. The same time Taylor and Rachel had heard strange noises coming from the guest room. Had they investigated then, there was a chance her life might have been saved. Danielle's body was transported for forensic examination, revealing the appalling extent of her injuries. Before her death, she had endured a brutal assault, suffering numerous wounds inflicted by bare hands. Her nose, jaw, and cheekbone were fractured. Several teeth were knocked out, one eye was destroyed, and she sustained a closed skull fracture along with multiple brain hemorrhages from the relentless beating. The attacker had forced her to the ground, using his weight to pin her down and covering her mouth to muffle her cries. He repeatedly struck her head with his fists, delivering blow after blow. At some point, Danielle likely lost consciousness, but the assault did not stop. Her injuries painted a chilling picture of sustained and savage violence. The cause of Danielle's death was determined to be mechanical asphyxiation. She had been strangled with bare hands. The evidence overwhelmingly pointed to Ashley as the perpetrator. After committing the heinous act, he made no attempt to hide his actions. Instead, he washed the blood off his hands in the bathroom, dressed, and fled through the window, leaving his fingerprints on the frame. Detectives soon uncovered a witness, a neighbor, who reported seeing someone walking away from Taylor's house around 4:30 a.m. Although the neighbor couldn't clearly identify the individual, they described him as a white male wearing clothes matching what Ashley had been seen wearing that night. As part of the investigation, authorities traced Ashley's cell phone activity and uncovered a call he made to his mother around 4 a.m., shortly after the crime and while he was still in the room with Danielle's body. The recording revealed Ashley in a frantic and distraught state. Crying uncontrollably, he repeatedly insisted that he hadn't done anything wrong. He claimed someone else had entered the room and harmed Danielle, asserting that he only discovered her body afterward. His tone suggested desperation, as though he was trying to convince not just his mother, but also himself of this fabricated version of events. Luckily, Ashley failed to turn off his phone after the call, enabling authorities to trace his location. He had fled to a remote mountainous area, seemingly trying to evade capture. Police eventually tracked him down near a scenic overlook by a steep cliff. As officers approached, Ashley vaulted over the safety barrier, clinging to the edge and threatening to jump if anyone came closer. Specialized negotiators and psychologists were brought in to de-escalate the situation. They spent hours speaking with him, reassuring him that if he were truly innocent, he had nothing to fear. The tense standoff stretched over 12 hours, with Ashley perched dangerously on the cliff's edge. As midnight neared, Ashley, visibly exhausted and momentarily distracted, was swiftly grabbed by officers and pulled back to safety. Ashley's behavior was highly erratic, He screamed, resisted arrest, sobbed uncontrollably, and repeatedly threatened to end his life. In such a fragile mental state, questioning him was impossible. He was taken to a psychiatric facility where medical professionals stabilized him. They later concluded that his emotional state had been so volatile that had the officers not intervened, he likely would have acted on his threats. Ashley was eventually diagnosed with several psychological disorders, including excitable psychopathy, a condition characterized by sudden episodes of rage and unprovoked aggression. Following his arrest, investigators delved into his past, uncovering a deeply troubling history. Danielle was far from his first victim. Over the previous few years alone, more than 10 women had filed police reports against him for physical assaults, attempted harm, and stalking. As investigators learned, Ashley grew up without a father and had struggled with severe mental health issues from a young age. His aggression was apparent early on, with his first victims being his own mother and 2 sisters. They silently endured his physical and emotional abuse, fearing the repercussions of reporting him. When calm, Ashley could present himself as entirely rational and composed. However, the slightest provocation could unleash a violent and uncontrollable side of him. During his teenage years, Ashley developed an unhealthy fixation on women in his relationships. With his good looks and charismatic demeanor, he had no trouble attracting partners. However, once involved, he quickly treated these women as his property. Any attempt to challenge or disagree with him would result in physical aggression. If a partner tried to leave him, Ashley would stalk and harass them, often escalating to violence. Between 2015 and 2021, at least 11 women reported Ashley for harassment, assault, and threats. In 4 cases, the victims withdrew their statements, often out of fear or following reconciliation attempts. However, several others successfully obtained restraining orders against him. In early 2021, Ashley brutally assaulted a girlfriend, nearly strangling her. Although she pursued legal action, Ashley faced only minor repercussions, a fine, community service, and a restraining order. Later that same year, Ashley attacked another woman, causing severe injuries. She narrowly escaped and filed a police report accusing him of attempted harm. This time, the situation escalated further. Ashley was ordered to undergo a psychiatric evaluation, and while the findings clearly indicated he posed a high risk of reoffending, the court handed down a lenient sentence: just 3 months in jail and restitution payments to the victim. In 2022, Ashley targeted another ex-girlfriend after their breakup. He broke into her room late at night and attempted to strangle her. Her screams alerted her parents, who intervened, called the police, and managed to stop the attack. Yet again, the court issued a light punishment, sentencing him to only 6 months in jail. Ashley was released after serving just 3.5 months, shortly before he met Danielle Finley Jones. The brutal crime involving Danielle drew widespread media coverage. Newspapers reported extensively on the case, and news channels dedicated significant airtime to the story. During the investigation, 14 additional women came forward to reveal that they too had been harmed by Ashley at different times, but had remained silent out of fear of retaliation. Their testimonies painted a consistent picture. Ashley initially came across as kind and charming, but after a few dates, he turned violent, attacking, beating, and attempting to strangle them. Notably, he never used weapons, relying solely on his bare hands to harm his victims. Many of these women testified in court, sharing their harrowing experiences and voicing fears that Ashley might once again receive a light sentence and be released, potentially seeking revenge. Their concerns were not unfounded, as Ashley had repeatedly evaded serious consequences for his violent crimes, often receiving only lenient sentences or administrative penalties. However, with the overwhelming evidence in the Danielle Finley Jones case, it seemed justice would finally catch up with him. Before sentencing could take place, however, Ashley was found dead in his jail cell on April 6, 2024. Though it appeared to be a suicide, questions surrounded the circumstances. Despite the heinous nature of his crimes, Ashley had shown no remorse and seemed confident he would be declared insane, which would transfer him to a psychiatric facility rather than a prison. Given his behavior and reported attacks on cellmates, suspicions arose that foul play might have been involved in his death. Danielle's murder left her family devastated. Her mother and brother struggled to cope with their loss, channeling their grief into advocacy efforts. They began campaigning for stricter regulations on dating apps, including mandatory background checks to identify users with serious criminal histories. Their mission was to prevent others from unknowingly encountering dangerous individuals, giving people a better chance to assess potential risks before entering a relationship.